Hello, hello, test, test, test. Hey, it's Cindy, and I am sitting in my house. I am not in my closet surrounded by clothing and soundproof things, so it may sound a little echoey. You may hear my dog snoring or the washing machine going off, but I woke up today and my wife told me the news. I went for a walk in the woods, found myself thinking about the song We Shall Overcome and singing it by myself, surrounded by the fallen leaves and the pine trees and my dog. When I got home, I put on Dawn Landis's new album, The Liberated Woman's Songbook, and I thought about women of the past and how they found their strength. So, as a woman in 2024, I did what a lot of people probably did today, is I started looking at social media and posting clips of women who appeared on Basic Folk this year. And as I was listening, I started feeling better. And it made me want to put these voices together all in one spot, because I found strength and I found comfort in hearing their voices, not just what they had to say, but actually hearing women's voices all in one spot. So I hope it helps you wherever you are, whoever you voted for. Thank you for listening. Take care today. We'll be here for you on Basic Folk.
When I think about what it takes to get free, especially, again, like through this feminist lens that I think we're bringing, I feel like most women I know have an experience where they've been working and working and working to perform and to execute and to please everyone else, and then things sort of fall apart a little bit in some way or another, in a big way or a small way. And like partying can actually be a really important step towards getting free, because it shows you where you need to fall apart. And those experiences of being silly and doing the wrong thing and being on the dance floor, like in community with other women and in community with queer people, like for me, those experiences have been so important. And like, I'm not a big like go to the club person these days, but I do think that there's something really, really special in like when you're feeling absolutely terrible, and like things have gone absolutely the worst they could have gone, to like call up your friends and go to the bar. And that's what this song is about. Because like it's about those late night talks where you're like, oh, I just don't know how I'm gonna like get up and go to work tomorrow, or like, oh, I'm so heartbroken. And there's a silliness and a flow to it, and often line dancing comes with it for me.
The bar was always really high, and I think that's so important in music and music mentorship, is to kind of bring, as opposed to like playing down to the person that you're mentoring, like bringing them up to your level, and kind of like encouraging that rising thing. And that's what all those people did, and I'm really grateful for that. And so it really set me up to be a performer on my own in many ways. And and I think I carry that with me still to this day. Those are lasting effects for sure.
Good mentors are so important.
Oh, it's everything.
Especially for like young women. I feel like I am always on a soapbox talking about how women need mentorship and we deserve it, and we don't get it nearly enough of the time.
The other thing I think about with mentorship is hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
When it comes to having not a good mentor.
Yeah, no, those people are definitely out there. I think, you have to kind of recognize when that's happening and remove yourself from the situation as quickly as possible. Yeah. I know that's sometimes easier said than done. But yeah, I think there were a couple, not really like individuals, but there were a couple of maybe jam situations where I might have felt that, or not felt included, or not felt welcomed. And don't waste your time. Just move on and find the places where people are lifting you up, like I said. Yeah. And obviously I realize that that's not a given, and I feel very fortunate that I had that privilege, really. But it goes along with the working really hard thing too, because if people are going to create that space for you, like you also have to put in the work to meet them there. And so it kind of, those two things go hand in hand.
I got the chance to listen to Aoife's album last night, and it was so beautiful. I noticed before the last track, there's a hint of Battle Hymn of the Republic before the last track. And Battle Hymn of the Republic is a huge inspiration for my project, just for protest music in general. There's actually a wonderful article in The Atlantic about the history of that song.
Just read that. Yes, yeah. I read that like when I was working on this thing. It's an abolitionist song, and the text for that was written by a woman, and it's really incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it's been repurposed for so many different movements throughout history. In my show, it didn't make it on the album, but when I do a performance of this, at the end, everybody comes out and we sing Battle Hymn of Women, which was, the lyrics were rewritten by Meredith Tax, but the chorus was repurposed from the civil rights, because they say, move on over, or we'll move on over you. But that was from the civil rights, but then Meredith Tax wrote lyrics on top of that with a feminist bent. But the history of that song is fantastic, and I love it. I loved hearing that in your album, Aoife.
And for me, the actual act of childbirth, which I was able to have an actual childbirth with both boys, that changed how I took the stage significantly. After I had my first son, I stepped back into these rambles that I was playing with my dad. And I remember standing there, coming back up to the section of a song that I hadn't trusted myself to like really nail that chorus or really get that high note or whatever it was that I was reaching for. And I was like, oh, fuck this. I just went through that labor. I just like witnessed this child, this like incredible manifestation of love that actually I got to carry it and bring it into the world. Like, fuck it. Nothing else is going to scare me now. I'm not going to let myself spend another moment in fear. Of course, since his birth, I've had many moments of fear, but that was definitely a turning point for me.
Every time we play out, almost every time I can actually say, I have someone come up to me and say, you're the reason that I started to play bass. And many of them are women, but not all of them. But many of them are women who are older than me. I've had some women tell me that for them, their options were fewer when they were coming up. By the time those options became more real for them, that's when I was doing something and they saw something in me playing, and just it was relatable, and they just went after it. You're not just giving like one evening's worth of like hopefully a good time, and they're getting to hear great music and they get out and they maybe escape their own life for a minute, but maybe you're also like giving them something that they are going to then hopefully get joy from for a long, long time. It's really powerful.
Invisible Woman was written with my son as well. We didn't know what we were going to write about. He came up to write a song. And he said, I'm 60, I think he was 62 at the time. He says, I feel as if I'm invisible. Through a little bit of interrogation, it kind of worked out that he felt invisible to young women. I said, if you feel invisible, a man at 62, when as far as I'm concerned, you are way in your prime. Imagine what it's like to be a woman of 80. Or 85, and he latched onto that, and we wrote the song in 2 hours.
I'm a songwriter. My husband's a songwriter. We rarely write together. It's such a vulnerable thing. I can't imagine, how do you do that with your children? How do you get to that space?
I never wrote songs with you and McCall, but with my sons, they take me out of my box. It's really a delight to write with them, and with my daughter-in-law. Yeah.
For me, being the woman who's also a working artist, bearing children, it's been like pretty shocking to me how much I feel like I've experienced discrimination. I'm pregnant right now, and in some ways I have like a scarlet letter on me that I have to go around being like, guys, I'm still going to be here. I'm still bookable.
It's interesting that you like feel that there's this pressure to reassure people that you are still exploitable. Just because I'm going through a human experience doesn't mean I'm not still useful to capitalism. And it's so gross that you're being pressured to reassure people.
When I stopped smoking pot and drinking, like 4.5 years ago, I started to have a lot of really intense dreams. And so I don't remember if it was the same time as that or if it was a little bit after that I was reading this book about these different dream practices. You write your dream in the morning and you consider, if I am everyone in my dream, then I am that person in my dream that did that, and I am this person in my dream that experienced this. That was a really fascinating exercise because it's all me, it's all my psyche, it's all my dream. It's one thing to think that and know that, but then in the writing there were these really big realizations that I wouldn't have pieced together without doing that practice. I worked to not let myself avoid the dreams that were really hard, like the bad dreams, like the murder or rape or horrible dreams, scary dreams. I made myself write and identify with all those people in my dreams. And it was really amazing to work through that stuff.
I've heard a rumor that you were an emo kid growing up. Can you confirm or deny these allegations?
That is so funny. Well, when I was a kid, we didn't have emo. We had grunge. We had post-grunge and we had alternative rock. Growing up out in this town called Dayton, about an hour outside of Houston. And we lived in this double-wide trailer, and their room was on one end of it, and my room was on the other end. And I had a TV antenna, and I had my guitar, and I would just sing Alanis Morissette songs with the TV antenna as my microphone. I was a big Nirvana, especially the Nirvana Unplugged album. So when I was very little, my mom specifically, she allowed me to listen to country music. She allowed me to listen to Christian music. And when I was about 13, she allowed me to turn the dial to more secular stations. And that's when I was just immediately drawn to alternative music. I'll never beat those allegations. I definitely walked around with my shoulders shrugged. And in 8th grade, I was just so Daria coded.
The night that the fear became super big and real, I think I was 14, and I went and saw Brandi Carlile. She brought her wife Catherine on stage at the end. I didn't know any lesbians growing up. We were in a really Catholic bubble, and I just kind of didn't have much exposure to queer people. Just being in a sea of cool lesbians, seeing Brandi and her wife, and I admired Brandi so much, especially at that age when I was new to writing songs. I remember that night not being able to sleep. I remember that night really, really clearly. The agony of realizing I'm pretty sure that I'm gay. That can't be okay. Because at the time I was I went to Catholic school pretty much my whole life and was taught that it's not a sin to be gay, just to act on it. I feel that might have been the night that I pushed it down. For a lot of my life, it was just this sleeping dragon or whatever that I kind of knew I would have to deal with.
I felt that I had a lot of freedom to say, that's not what I want, this is what I want. That maybe was a freedom that came with being in my late 20s. I always felt as the songwriter, the smallest person in the room during a recording session. I don't think that that's an accident that I'm obviously a biracial person of color. A lot of the roots scene and the folk scene in Canada is all white people. And I think it's really easy to just belittle myself and say, well, I only wrote the songs. My creative instincts might not be as sharp as other people's who are older than me and more experienced than me. Very few people would stop a conversation in the middle of the room and say, wait, what do you think, Kaïa? Right? And I also I never claimed that space for myself either. Strange Medicine, I think, was a place where I could say, this is what I want sonically. And it was just so joyful. I thought a lot about groove. The bed tracks that I laid down were me and a drummer.
Drums are so good on this record.
Thank you. That was deliberate. It was if I don't feel the pulse between the banjo and the drums, then something's wrong, something's off.
I think in particular performing this song over the last couple of years has reaffirmed how sneaky white supremacy can be and how it looks so different in different places. This song has also given me an opportunity to be really direct on stage and be this is what this song is about, and hoping to just dismantle completely once and for all and be one small part of that it is pretty wild how different it lands when you're like in a small parlor room in Brooklyn or a county festival in Wisconsin. People hear that differently. Ultimately, it leads to like really interesting conversations at the merch table, I think, because I look a certain way and I inhabit space a certain way. People of a lot of different opinions are comfortable talking to me, which I should be the one in the room saying, here's what we're talking about, here's what we need to work on, and like, are you with me or not? And then like, yeah, give me your opinion, send me your hate mail. Like, I think that's just part of the responsibility of all white identifying folks. All right, it's overdue that we're doing the work like that.
Where is ease coming into your feminism right now? It's not something that I feel actually shows up that much. I'm like a big Adrienne Marie Brown fan. Mm-hmm. I read Pleasure Activism years ago. Really opened me to be more in touch with the idea that you can't be a good activist unless you know what makes you feel good, unless you know what ignites your pleasure in this world.
Janet Jackson taught us that.
Yes, yeah, there have been examples, for sure. But, I've always been very motivated in my music by different social causes, and I feel like my music has always been like kind of touted as activist, and I always kind of felt like I don't know that I'm activist enough. Which is also another classic, experience of Black women. Like when we do get given our flowers, we're like, well, I don't know if I did enough.
Should I hand out a few of the flowers?
Yeah, right. Should I share
here?
it with the community so that I feel less bad?
Should I dry the flowers and make them useful in some way?
Exactly.